Hi everybody, this is Danny Class. Once you start learning some of the scales of the guitar, we start typically with the pentatonic scales, so that's 5 notes. And then we have, of course, the major scale, which is 7, and all of the variants, whether it's the world of the minor scales, the melodic minor, the natural minor, the modes, and then we're kind of left with the number 7. And but it turns out that there are other scales with more and fewer notes. And to me, that's very exciting and interesting because it expands and opens up the instrument to new possibilities. And so with that in mind, I'd like to show you a hexatonic scale today, a 6-note scale that is just a wonderful piece of music, really. It's one you've heard from everyone from Debussy to Stevie Wonder to The Simpsons. And it is the whole tone scale. And it's an interesting scale also because it's a symmetrical scale, meaning the space between each scale degree is the same. It's constant. In this case, it is a whole step. So I'm going to show you examples today in the key of B, and that's going to make sense later in the lesson because we're going to see how this is not just another kind of guitar sort of trick or a guitar kind of thing, but you can use it to really kind of compose and explore new sonic territory that you might not have thought about before. Okay, so why a whole tone scale, with get my bearings here. I'm not used to playing scales on one string, but you know what? It's really a good idea, actually. I do it, but when I think scale, I think, 6 strings. But let's do the just on the 6 string so we can kind of see this in action. So at the 7th fret on the 6th string, that's the B. Add a whole step, we're at the 9th fret. Add a whole step, we are at the 11th fret. The fingering doesn't matter, I'm just using my middle finger. Add a whole step, we are at the 13th fret, and if you want, you can subtract now and go back to 1 to the lower octave. So we're at the 1st fret, add a whole step, we're at the 3rd fret, add a whole step, we're at the 5th fret, and that is the scale. So 2 repeats. Okay, and there's another place that we can play it if you kind of want to still understandably sort of think about the major scale form. If we kind of map it onto the major scale form, we are left with this particular these particular notes. Okay. And, if you want to go backwards a little faster. So, what can we do with the scale? Well, why are we doing it in B? The reason why is because I think that it's always good to kind of, have a pedal point, a background drone. And in this case, instead of a low note, why don't we do a high note? Right? Because usually a background drone is kind of almost like a substitute for the bass that might not be with you right now because you're in quarantine. And so let's put a high note, in this case the open B. Okay, that's going to be the 2nd string. So let's play the whole tone scale in B with that open B, and let's just see what happens. We'll first do the 1st string, the 6th string variant, the 1-string variant. Backwards, slide it, always slide. Love sliding. Okay, so we can kind of see how it's, revealing almost its secrets to us, right? And if we decided to do the other version, now we've got some interesting kind of things. And by the way, explore open notes because that open A is also part of the scale. That's a proper part of the scale. Throw it in, see what happens. You can do intervallic soloing, kind of in thirds, up. Okay, and so that's a good kind of use of this, but also the interesting part of the whole tone scale is that let's look at the chords that go with it. And the chords are going to be unusual because the major chord will not work here and the minor chord will not work here. But what does work, among others, is the augmented chord. And I've really grown to kind of just get interested in this chord. It's such a, I don't know what, modernist horror movie kind of sound that's really interesting. So we'll start at B augmented here. But the cool thing is that if all of the notes of the whole tone scale are symmetrical, it turns out all of the augmented chords are symmetrical, meaning you can go from B augmented, shift everything up a whole step, C sharp augmented, D sharp augmented, right? F augmented, G augmented, A augmented, excuse me. Throw in that open A. I mean, it's a tense, kind of uncomfortable chord. It really wants to resolve. You know, the augmenteds and the diminished chords kind of want to go somewhere. But what's cool about this is that instead of resolving to the typical major chord, which can get, you know, a little boring, I think. I mean, these plateaus are normal. You know, we play something and we kind of maybe in our mind kind of exhaust the interest, exhaust the kind of emotional charge we get from it. And so that's where augmented chords can come in for you perhaps, because you can still kind of resolve back to that B. And if you really want to resolve this sound, go to just Bs, right? Just like a double B or triple B for that matter. That's the other thing. I mean, you know, the sixth and first strings are the same. Double those with the open B. I mean, I didn't really think about this before I started, but now you really have something. You know, and the other thing to think about also is, you know, when I do these, I think, oh, I'll just use the acoustic today or I'll just use the electric. But, you know, don't get caught up, I don't think, in that sort of thinking like, well, this is acoustic playing and this is electric playing. I mean, the more I've been playing, and I'm at, 32 years now and teaching for many, many years, I'm starting to realize that it's all kind of one thing. It's all one instrument. There's a kind of holistic quality to it. And there's no reason, really, why what you can't do on an electric, you can't do on an acoustic, and vice versa, with maybe some technical things related to, like harmonics and, of course, with distortion. But this obviously can work with any style that you want and any guitar that you want. So, I hope you found it useful as a way to kind of break out of other scales. There's lots we can do with this. And I'll put a learning plan also in the description to the video. But also one thing to think about is that, once you have this, you can explore this in other keys, because you're going to start seeing, wow, this is really easy. It's just the same spacing between all the notes, and that will kind of show you how there's the same spacing between all of the chords. So I hope you found it useful, and I hope you stay well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.